Hi, do you know how many felons there are in the US? Do you know how many prisoners there are in the US? Well, together, felons and prisoners make up for 28.5 million people of the 328 million in the United States alone. That's over 11.5% of our own population, in which only 18 states allow convicted felons to vote and only 2 allowing those incarcerated. With their percentage of their population, reaching double digits, it's only morally right that they receive voting rights as established by the Constitution and retain those when incarcerated. Felons and prisoners alike are humans just as the rest of civilization and have the right to vote just like the rest of the people under the US Constitution. Most prisoners and felons will have futures outside of federal punishment, and by not being able to vote, they are unable to partake in controlling how their future may go, unlike everyone else around them. And with an undeniably large population, their inability to vote produces a non-accurate representation of the population and people that make up the democracy of our nation. Even though they are in prison and have served their time, felons and prisoners are humans and have the rights to vote just like everyone else. Just because they've made that mistake, they shouldn't have constitutional rights completely stripped away from them as if they weren't even human. Voting would actually help prison conditions, as stated by Sousa Baranowski, a former correctional officer. Conditions of confinement would then improve with voting, the justice system would change, and prisons might even begin to close. Voting will also help people in prison feel connected to society and value community. Prisons are widely known to be treated just like prisoners are widely known to be treated just like, if not worse, than animals. So by taking a human given right under our own constitution away from them, we put them further at the level of an animal by doing so. Voting being the constitutional right that it is for citizens living in the United States, this includes prisoners and felons. It's simply unconstitutional and immoral to take that away. One may argue that they are giving up their rights when they commit that crime. However, they do finish their terms, they do finish their sentences. So what about when they come out and join society again? They can't establish their families and become one with society. Most prisoners will actually obtain those lives and futures again outside of incarceration, as many felons do to this day. And by not being able to vote, they're unable to control their future for themselves and the family as equally as those around them. Without the right to vote, how can they have a say in the policies that politicians control their lives with? As said by a resident in a state prison in Maine, simply put, I want to have a say in my own future. Gets the point across. Them not being able to vote skews our policies and how they are voted. This controls the generation ahead of those prisoners and felons and the families that they will live through as well as themselves. Prisoners and majority of felons not being able to vote provides an inaccurate representation of society's opinions and views, further flawing our already flawed voting system. Our voting system only using double digits in electoral votes means that we simply can't have an accurate representation of our huge population, especially when a chunk of that population isn't even allowed to vote. The population of prisoners and felons is literally in the double digits in terms of percentages. So how could voting possibly be accurate for the majority's opinions? Over 11.5% of our population seemingly swept under the rug in terms of voting. And as said by the New Yorker when explaining voting from actually being incarcerated, this is legal in most European Union and in countries as disparate as Indonesia, South Africa, Canada, and Kenya. So how could a country that claims to be number one and all about freedom do that? We're a democratic nation, all being for the voice of the people. How could that possibly be claimed when a chunk of our population isn't even allowed to vote and have a say in their future? They are stripped of that US right as if they weren't even human. No one could agree that that is fair or even possible to say and claim as a nation. Felons and prisoners alike must have the ability to control their future as everyone else in our nation. And they must be able to, in order for our nation to claim equal, amongst other things, we must do that. Of course, exceptions in case-by-case situations will need to be made, but it must begin somewhere. Thank you.